On the line. Yeah, I've told the GM we're gonna have some Q&A on that, so, yeah. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Amir Faroki. I'm Chair of the City Council's Transportation Committee. I want to welcome everyone to the June 28th, 2023 meeting of the Atlanta City Council Transportation Committee. We have 4 council members, including myself, 5, including myself today, which gives quorum. To my right, walking in, is Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet, and to my left, Councilmember Dustin Hillis, who's not part of the committee but is always welcome to be here and ask the hard questions. Councilmember Juan and Councilmember Norwood to my immediate left. So we have a quorum. Our first item of business will be to adopt the agenda. I will move to do so. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Norwood. Please open the vote on the motion to adopt the agenda.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Our next item of business is to approve the minutes. I'll move to do so. Second by Juan. Please open the vote on the motion to approve the minutes.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
Terrific. We'll now move to public comment. We have 3 folks signed in. Our first speaker is Beverly Miller. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Beverly Miller. I'm a board member of Beltline Rail now. I'm here today speaking on behalf of that organization. We are very excited that MARTA's Planning and Capital Programs Committee has voted to hire HDR to advance the design of the Streetcar East extension from 30 to 70%. On July 13th, the full MARTA board will vote on the acceptance of the contract and the allocation of funding. This is a crucial vote. We hope that you will communicate the need to the 3 Atlanta MARTA board members to vote in favor and to exhort the other board members to do the same. Beltline Rail now works for the equity and opportunity that only a quality mass transit system can provide and that our city so desperately needs. We are supportive of the city's new legislation to obtain a $100 million bond for affordable housing, but we are also aware that affordable housing alone is not enough. Housing and car ownership are the 2 greatest expenses for most households, and both must be addressed. The streetcar extension is needed to connect the rest of the MARTA system to the great resources, including vast opportunities for employment and for enhancing quality of life that exist along the East Side Trail. We ask that you push for funding and implementation of improvements to the existing streetcar as well. Any improvements MARTA makes would have to be funded through more MARTA. We hope that the funding from Atlanta DOT can also be provided. Finally, please consider other sources of funding for the 5 Point Station redevelopment. We believe that more MARTA tax dollars should be spent on mass transit expansion, and that the money currently allocated for the 5 Point Station redesign could be reallocated to other transit projects. The 15th Amendment of the MARTA contract names 5 Points specifically on the list of projects to be funded from the core penny sales tax and not from more MARTA. Redevelopment of 5 Points can move forward with less reliance on Atlanta's half-penny sales tax. And when a design is finalized that principal stakeholders agree will enhance both transit operations and the built environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Benson.
Good morning. I'm an old Fourth Ward resident who lives on Auburn Avenue in the historic MLK district. My comments today relate to the proposed Streetcar Extension East project. I provided a similar version of these comments to the MARTA Board of Directors just a week or so ago. As you're aware, and was just mentioned, recently MARTA selected the firm that will perform the final design for the Streetcar Extension project. Within the fiscal 24 MARTA budget, there was an estimated amount of $12 million for the project. I assume that will likely be the amount that the design firm will receive. I find it interesting that the selected firm also helped MARTA develop the More MARTA budget, but that's not what I want to focus on today. Instead, I'm here to say that I think MARTA and the taxpayers should attempt to get their money's worth for that $12 million. You've heard from a number of individuals and businesses over the last several months that there are significant concerns about this project as it is currently designed. I certainly hope that as a part of this final design, there are alternatives that are considered, that the intent is not just to plow forward with what has been sketched out over the last several years. Many of us hope that MARTA and the city are considering more technologically advanced alternatives to the streetcar, such as individual light transit like autonomous mobility and/or on-demand shuttles, which are much less expensive and require less infrastructure than the streetcar. I also hope that alternative paths that do not cut through historic neighborhoods to get to the Beltline are being considered. Again, for $12 million, it should not just be repeat with more detail on what was envisioned more than 5 years ago. I also hope that MARTA and the city finally release the information related to the Irwin Street closure study and a revised ridership study to which MARTA recently committed. Finally, I hope that this $12 million of design results in something that Atlantans can be proud of and that is worthy of being used on the Beltline, which many of us consider to be one of the most prized components of our city. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Jeremiah Jones. And I'll note we've been joined by our colleague, Councilmember Antonio Lewis, to my far right.
Good morning, I'm Jeremiah Jones. I am the Advocacy Coordinator at Propel ATL, and I'm here on behalf of Propel ATL and our many constituents around Atlanta. And I'm just here today just to say thank you to all our council members for a recent decision to transfer money from non-departmental unrestricted reserves to the Atlanta Department of Transportation to address resurfacing and safety improvements throughout the 12 council districts. With this increased budget, ATL DOT will be better equipped to address the pressing needs of our growing city. This significant $12 million investment in our city's streets and infrastructure is a testament to your commitment to the well-being of our community, the ability of our residents to move safely, easily, and sustainably throughout our city. Once again, we want to extend our appreciation to everyone involved in this decision. Your actions reflect a deep understanding of the importance of the reliability and the efficiency of our transportation infrastructure for the prosperity and well-being of our community. Thank you again for your continued commitment to make Atlanta a safe, inclusive, and thriving city. Thank you all.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who came down today to make public comment. We appreciate it. We don't have any formal presentations today from departments or agencies. However, I want to ask two different groups to come speak to us briefly on two separate topics. One, I'm going to ask ATL DOT to come speak about a pothole on Ponce that tried to swallow a car yesterday, and then our airport GM to talk a little bit about the long lines related to the international to domestic terminal shuttle that's received some recent press coverage. But we'll start with ATL DOT.
Good morning, committee. Solomon Cavan, this ATL DOT Commissioner. Thank you for bearing with us as we've been dealing with a sinkhole due to a sewer line break on Ponce de Leon between Myrtle and Penn Street. So crews have been working since we got on the scene there about 2:30, 3 o'clock. The incident happened just after 2 o'clock yesterday. And we are working in coordination with Georgia Department of Transportation, making sure that traffic control is in place while crews are securing the scene. They're working throughout the day and will provide updates going into this evening. As it turns out, we have 1 lane of traffic eastbound and 2 lanes of traffic westbound. Traffic has been light with detours available by way of North Avenue, so we're asking folks to stay clear of the area if at all possible. Use MARTA, follow GPS if at all possible. So with that, we will be backfilling and restoring by way of watershed management the hole, hopefully before this evening, if not tonight, and we'll make sure everyone's updated.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to say a huge thanks. Obviously, this isn't District 2, but irrespective, huge thanks to ATO-DOT and Watershed Management for responding quickly, working through the night. My understanding is it's a 20-inch clay pipe that breached, and over time, the soil had eroded, and a new iron pipe is being installed this morning, and hopefully the road will be restored as soon as possible. So glad no one was hurt, and appreciate your report today. I do have one colleague who wants to speak. Councilmember Juan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Commissioner. This may actually be, well, for you jointly with the Watershed Commissioner as well. I wish this weren't a common occurrence. Fortunately, so far, it's been just minor ones or on the side of the road. But, you know, as our water infrastructure continues to age, I'm wondering what y'all are doing, if anything, to try and anticipate this. It's better to be proactive than reactive in a situation like this, obviously. And so are there tests or system inspections that we can do along the way that will signal to us earlier when there's underground water main breaches? You know, there was another one in Lindridge Martin Manor recently, but unfortunately it was on the side of the road, but it was quickly gobbling up the road, and unfortunately the teams were out there to prevent that, something more serious. And then my other question after that is I just want to make sure that the couple that was involved in this, that they're okay.
I will, Chair, speak to the second question first. So the two occupants of the vehicle were not seriously injured. They actually walked away from the scene, so they're stable. Going back to your first question, I will be cautious in terms of speaking on behalf of Watershed. However, I know that Commissioner Browning is pursuing a citywide scan. They're doing inventory work and following up on the work they've done by way of the original consent decree. So I'll follow up with her, and we'll follow up with this group just to give an update and make sure everyone is comfortable with future steps.
All right, thank you.
And if I may, Chair, I'd like to just thank all the folks who were out last night and who are still out. We have folks who made it in today, who spent part of the night out on the road, and all support. We got pizza from the local pizza shop, and it just speaks to the commitment and the hard work of our workforce. So.
And thank you. And I'll also note that last night while this was happening, I got an email about someone worried about a sinkhole on a residential street in Candler Park. I flagged it for you and Commissioner Browning of Watershed, and a crew went out or is going out this morning to look at it. But I think to Councilor Wan's question, aside from whatever high-tech approaches we can use to test the strength and quality of our old pipes, just being vigilant when you see depressions in the road and you're concerned to contact us, contact the department so y'all can go investigate.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
I'll note we've also been joined by my colleague, Councilmember Byron Amos, and to my immediate right, Councilmember Keisha Sean Waits. Thank you. General Manager Bayodari, welcome. I understand you have a couple slides you may want to show regarding airport traffic, I'm told. Is that right?
Did we?
And again, just for folks watching and for folks who showed up at committee, there's no formal aviation report today. Our agenda is almost entirely legislation. However, I've asked the General Manager to talk to us briefly about the long lines that we've seen for shuttles between the international and domestic terminal, why it's happening, and what we can do to alleviate it.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Council Member. Before I get, I wanted to separate my comment into three sections. First and foremost, as you all saw, we had over 30,000 flight disruption in the past 3 days. 17,000 flight disruption alone on Sunday, 11,000 on Monday, and yesterday, 9,000. We're seeing the daylight today, so far, 1,900 flight disruption across the system, most of it on the eastern seaboard. What does it mean to Atlanta? It means a lot of people were stuck in the airport overnight. Some of them have been here for 2-3 days. And if you look at my staff and you see them blurry-eyed, it's because they're working around the clock to support these passengers with amenities kit, concession, food program, and so on and so forth. So first and foremost. Secondly, I just want to show you a quick snapshot of what's happening in Atlanta. We always plan 6 months ahead on our operations plan. So we came out of the Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's holiday into spring, and then we planned for summer. We knew that this summer was going to be bigger than last summer. Last year, we finished the year at 94 million passengers. This year, we forecast 104 million passengers. So we did have a plan in place. If you look at what I'm showing here, TSA checkpoint volume, this is from May 1st through June 26th. 39 out of the 57 days, we exceeded our busiest year on record, and that was 2019. 39 days so far this year, we exceed 2019 number. If you look at the overall volume for the first half of this year, we have exceeded 2019 number 100 days out of the 177 days so far. So the operations is big, it's growing. Available seat leaving Atlanta when compared to 2019 for the first 6 months, 126 million total departing seat that we're looking at. This year we're looking at 123 million departing seat. This is 2023 total year, the full calendar year over 2019. So you could see that we are just about equal to 2019 forecast. And if you look at the available seat for a new classification that is emerging at the airport, and that is the ultra low cost carrier, in 2019, the total passenger accommodated was just about 5 million. This year, we are expecting 10 million. And so these are either first-time flyer or infrequent flyer that are unfamiliar with the airport. And so when they come to the airport, these are the ones struggling. For example, I told my staff the first time I came to Atlanta Airport some long time ago, I'm not going to mention the date, I was here to pick someone up, and it was over the Thanksgiving weekend, and they're coming in on the south side. I was unfamiliar that I could park over on the north side and walk 2 minutes to get to the south side baggage claim. And that's what we're seeing. If you're unfamiliar with the airport, you're only looking at signage where you need to go, not looking at signage and taking into consideration the overall picture of the airport and the availability of products that are available to you. So that's where we are today with our operations. Talked about long lines at International Terminal. So we did some historical comparison of the data. So far this year, Atlanta international traffic is trending at about 85% of our 2019 number. So we're not quite at 2019 number, but for whatever reason, our demand for our parking product over at International Terminal have already exceeded 2019 and 2018 demand. And we're trying to figure out what's the reason for that. Not only international parking have exceeded our 2019, but also our domestic capacity have exceeded our 2019 demand. And it's reflected in our revenue too. And so now what's happening is those parkers that are coming to the airport are clogging up the roadway because of the lack of availability of parking product. 2 weeks ago, I took my entire senior team to do a terrain walk over International Terminal to determine what are the factors, what can we do immediately, medium, and short term. So Frank Rucker and Dr. Nasaki behind me here have been given the authorization by me to move forward in looking at and starting the planning process to increase our long-term facility parking availability over International Terminal. So that's planning have already begun. What are we doing immediately to alleviate some of this long wait to get to the international curbside and to reduce the wait time for passenger arriving at international need a ride on the terminal-to-terminal shuttle from international to domestic and via domestic to international. First and foremost, we have, and this communication is going out today because yesterday the entire team went again to solidify the plan. My entire senior team went out there yesterday and look at and validate what we're about to do makes sense. So first and foremost, we will increase the grace period for parking from 15 minutes to 30 minutes at the international terminal. So if you're coming to pick someone up, we urge you to park in the hourly deck, and the first 30 minutes will be free for you, and to get those vehicles out of the roadway system. Secondly, yesterday I have given authorization to double the number of buses that we have in rotation to move passenger from international to domestic, domestic to international. That went into effect yesterday. We're getting those buses in rotation along with bus drivers. Secondly, we have been looking at our parking procedure. Is there anything we could tweak in the parking to make the parking deck more efficient and accommodate any more vehicle in there? Can we build a true lane for customer to come out into the parking deck, pick up and move out that we call kiss and fly? So all of those things that are in consideration right now in evaluation. Fourthly, we look at lane segmentation. If you're coming into parking, stay in this lane. This is where it will get you into parking. If you're here to pick up, stay in this lane, and so on and so forth. So Frank and the team are putting all of that on paper today to brief me this afternoon so we could apply resource where necessary to implement lane segmentation with the appropriate signage. Thirdly, we're looking at our ADA posture on the curbside, and can we take a section of the curb and build another lane? That's a little bit more of the medium term, but those are some of the things that we're looking at. And lastly, what we're doing is to push communication to our constituent out there. We want to flood the airways. We want to flood the market with the communication to educate and inform when you get to the airport, the do's and don'ts. The AJC have been a good partner in helping us push some of this communication, and I'm expected, I see Ms. Yamaguchi here, that she will continue to help us push this communication to our constituent out there. With that, subject to any questions you may have.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate you being here to talk about this. I know we have some legislative items we'll also talk with you about, but I especially appreciate the problem-solving mindset because what we've seen, I'm sure my colleagues share this view, is not acceptable, and obviously we don't want to see it continue for very long. And I understand there's factors that contribute to it, whether it's parking, road congestion, and others. I think it would be helpful, just from a baseline education perspective, to explain to us, and you've explained to me, but I think it's just helpful to hear it again, and to the public, first, why the shuttle is necessary. Why can't folks who are in the international terminal hop on the plane train and go to domestic or vice versa? Can you just explain why we have the system we do?
So if you're flying on Delta and you're departing, you have the option, you're going on an international trip, you have the option to check in at the domestic terminal. And so a lot of travelers who are flying on Delta do take that opportunity, park in domestic, check in domestic, clear security at domestic, take the train to their departing gate. On the return flight, when they have to claim their luggage, if you're terminating in Atlanta, you have to claim your luggage to clear CBP. Because when the Concourse F was built, it was one of the provisions that was put in there that if you're terminating passenger, you cannot recheck again because you're now clogging up the TSA checkpoint. And further, international travelers do not have that option of rechecking their luggage for the airlines to pick that luggage, transport it to domestic carousel, and then reclaim your luggage again before you get to your parking. So if you're arriving international, you claim your luggage, you terminate, and thus the terminal-to-terminal shuttle. You take the terminal, if you're parked on the domestic side, to get to the domestic parking to get your vehicle. If you're terminating and someone is picking you up at international, you claim your luggage, you make a right, you walk out the door to the curb for your family members to pick you up there. That's the reason, primary reason for international.
You land international, you got to get your luggage at international, and you can't go back in for security reasons, so you need to take the shuttle. So all the demand right now we're seeing is that the international terminal headed back toward domestic.
Correct.
Okay. You said you've doubled the number of buses effective yesterday,
Actually, it was effective Friday.
effective Friday. One of the things, when we talked offline, you mentioned that one of the challenges that's contributing to this is just increased volume of traffic on surface roads between the two terminals. And I don't know who owns all the roads between the two terminals, if they're Atlanta, Hapeville, College Park, kind of, especially that long winding one that runs along the outside. Has there been any thought to, and I'm not saying it's possible that with a snap of a finger, because it may be a jurisdictional question, but to a dedicated lane for certain parts of that travel between the two terminals so that the bus can move as quickly as possible between the two terminals?
That's one of the options that Frank has on his plate when we talk about lane segmentation, that is exploring. What we have already put in place is the synchronization of all the traffic lights. So they're all synchronized, so it allows the bus greater flexibility and timeline to hit those lights and shorten the time it takes from international to domestic travel and vice versa.
Okay. I'll yield right now to my colleague, Marcy Collier Overstreet.
Well, of course, I have to be nice. I was told to. So I actually wrote down the exact same thing that Councilmember Faroki just said. I think that maybe a dedicated bus lane, because were the buses also waiting in that traffic?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So it's a mixture of traffic. Buses, once you leave the airport, pure property, MH Boulevard, and you hit Loop Road, you have buses, you have truck. We have a lot of truck traffic there, out there, and of course, privately owned vehicles.
Okay. I don't know. Can we look into it?
We are.
Okay, good. And, you know, I did traveling with Aero ATL with some of your team members also for PRT. Would this be an option for personal rapid transit or maybe an elevated rail? Because I actually have said several times that that is a little bit of my angst for the airport, getting from international baggage claim back to parking in the domestic terminal. So I just want us to find something permanent.
It's a good point. So I've been talking to the CID in Aerotropolis and the local elected officials in the local jurisdictions. And I said, if we're going to look at the transportation solution, is this a local solution or is this going to be a regional solution? Because PRT, even an optimistic cost assessment is going to be very expensive, or any form of transportation that we build. So we want to have a good plan with good cost estimate before we move forward. I am very supportive of a transportation solution, but what does that transportation solution look like? I think we still need some more staff work to be completed.
Absolutely. Okay. Have we noticed any closures of those parking rides along Camp Creek Parkway? Because I'm trying to figure out why are passengers feeling that it is more convenient to park on site, whether it be for domestic or international, because it looks like the international travel is actually like, I don't know what, 3% less than it has been.
It's about 15% less so far year to date compared to 2019.
So that's kind of significant then. And so it feels to me like people are deciding that it's easier to park on site regardless of where it is, as long as it's at the airport.
Yes, ma'am, and we have seen an explosion in the growth of demand for parking, not only at the airport, but also at the off-site parking facilities.
Oh, also, up and down Camp Creek, they're full too.
People are driving to the airport and they're parking at the airport.
Wow, okay, so, I don't know. Okay, well, I was just, just troubleshooting. What about APD directing traffic? Are we hiring more of those to do that?
So for APD, I want to use APD for what APD was created for, and that's law enforcement, protection of the airport. Over the last 2 years, we have embarked on transferring what we call Atlanta Enforcement Officer. I have hired 82 of them, and their sole purpose is to move traffic through our roadway system. So that's a very, very big force I have on staff whose primary job is traffic management.
And they were all working over the weekend?
They're 24/7 operations.
Wow. Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming in, giving us this update, and just keep us posted on where we are with it and how our times are, because I know they're going to get better because that's who you all are.
Yeah.
So just keep us posted as the time between the international to domestic shortens. Just let us know about it.
And thank you. And as you guys receive these type of feedback from your constituent, I know you're forwarding it to me, and I want to assure you that every complaint we receive from a constituent, I have a dedicated team answering every single one of those feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lewis.
Mr. B, I appreciate you for coming in today. As you were speaking, I was thinking of some of my friends who were driving in from Huntsville, Alabama, to take flights out of Atlanta. So business is good. When we talk about all of our parking lots being full, business is good. But I think it's time that we spend some of that record funding to bring in that new transportation. I think it's time for us to be innovative. I think it's time for us to grow. And when we talk about Mr. Frank Rucker, we know he loves putting shovels in the ground. And I think that it's the opportune time to grow the Atlanta airport. And I think that the gondola is something we can also look at, which is less pricey and which could move people and move things as well. So I think it's time we grow there. And one last thing that someone wanted me to ask, the cones at the airport. The cones are stopping people from being able to drop folks off. And so I was thinking, as we said hire more APD, we don't have enough APD to hire. How about we double the amount of staff because we're getting record money. I love talking about the Atlanta airport. So let's go from 62 or 82 to let's double it.
The purpose of doubling staff is there's only so much frontage I have, and having more staff on every 5 feet is not going to solve anything because it's adequate. So the question that we're faced with, we have only so much capacity. Just like me driving to City Hall this morning, right? 85, 75 only have so much capacity, and when you exceed that capacity, I was scared that I would be late for transportation because I start crawling in traffic. That's at the airport. And so we're looking at different options. But because of the size of our footprint, we have this airport, the world's busiest airport, sits on 4,500 acre footprint, right? When compared to a Denver or Bush Intercontinental 10. So we're working to minimize impact to our customer, but maximize the efficiency of that footprint.
And I'm always thinking about when you bring that up, I'm thinking about how folks on the south side sold their land to the city so that the airport could actually expand. And so I'm just trying to use my imagination. It's time for us to grow. It's time to compete with the airports that's overseas now. So I think we got the funding. We got the record infrastructure funding. We have two senators who are helping us bring in more funding into the city of Atlanta. We have a great congressperson who's fighting for the fighting fifth. I think right now everything is aligning to go and get as much money, as much funding as we can, and use Mr. Frank Rucker while we got him back to grow.
Absolutely. And just for information, my team did an assessment on the number of ATL enforcement officers we have to manage traffic, and they have made some proposal to me, and as I evaluate that, we're probably going to make some adjustment on the midterm personal paper to make sure that we have the right number of staffing to manage the operations, plus some.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Just as we close out here, Loop Road, is that city property or is it
A
Another
section of Loop Road is city property.
But not the
and-
entirety
And
of
a
it.
section is GDOT,
Okay. GDOT, not a neighboring municipality. Okay.
GDOT.
And then it sounds like maybe one of the many solutions here is education to folks on how to park or where to park if they're going to be returning to the international terminal, to kind of reduce the numbers of demand of folks trying to shuttle back and forth.
Yeah.
I would encourage y'all to look at how we communicate navigating the airport to international travelers.
So again, I want to thank my partner at AJC to help us push information out there. It's also on our website, and we also push via different means or different mode of communication out there. So we're doing a lot to help, but I told my staff is with communication, it got to be you got to repeat that communication for it to become sticky, and that's what we're working on, Mr. Chair.
Great. I'm not sure the AGC is excited to know it's going to be printing press releases from the airport, but I would be nice if our media promoted some of this.
So we have a press conference today to talk about summer travel, and on an annual basis, there's going to be a large section in the AJC devoted to the do's and don'ts of traveling through the world's busiest airport.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time today, Mr. Bayadari. We'll discuss some legislation with you actually right now. So our next section is Section F, ordinances for second reading. I'll turn to Mr. Johnson to read our first of 17 legislative items today.
Item number 1, 23O-1322, an ordinance by Transportation Committee establishing the fiscal year 2024 Airport Renewal and Extension Fund, Airport Passenger Facility Charge Fund, Aviation and Commerce Program budgets by transferring to and from appropriations in the amount of $196,880,358.00 to provide funding for various projects at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
This is to establish our FY24 capital budget that was approved for the number of projects we expect to complete in fiscal year 24, $748 million. We have $552 million that we will carry over from fiscal year 23.
Ms. Norwood.
Since we're approving $200 million today, can you please make sure that everything that you just talked about, because we have all gotten concerns, gets to the top of the queue? I know the capital projects are important, but our passengers being unhappy is the most important. So I'm going to support your $200 million, Mr. General Manager, but I would really like to see those midterm implementations done as quickly as you possibly can.
Councilmember Norwood, you have my commitment.
Thank you.
Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. GM, I know we approved an amendment in the 11th hour that increased your projections in terms of revenues. Does that impact this fund? And is it reflected, does this total reflect?
No, sir, this is different flavor of money.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 2, 23O-1323. An ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to abandon portions of a public street known as Old Jonesboro Road, consisting of approximately 0.423 acres lying and being in land lot 65 of the 14th District of Fulton County, Georgia, being more specifically described in attached Exhibit A to 3799 Browns Mill LLC, authorizing the mayor as designee to execute a quitclaim deed for such abandoned right-of-way and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, this item need to be held for a public hearing.
Motion to hold. Second by Juan. Please open the vote on the motion to hold for a public hearing.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is held in committee. Item number 3, 23O-1324, An ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend Chapter 138, Article 2, Division 4, Section 138-43, bus shelters of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances to add definitions and to provide certain informational and commercial signages and for other purposes.
Mr. Saxton.
Good morning, council members. Chair Farokhi, John Saxton, Mobility Planning Assistant Director, ATL DOT. The purpose of this legislation is to create definitions within the code for ART and BRT shelters, distinct from existing bus shelters, to allow for guidance and clarity on the size, location, and orientation of commercial advertising, as well as to allow for some of those amenities that are a key part of ART and BRT shelters, things like real-time arrival information, announcements, artwork or displays, wayfinding maps, things like that. So we recommend approval.
Motion by Overstreet, second by Wine. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Mr. Chair, item number 4 requires a substitute.
I'll second that motion to bring the substitute forward. Motion by Wine, second by Farokhi.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute before you. The substitute provides additional language and also adds the account information to the legislation.
I'll recognize my colleague, Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Chairman Farokhi. First, I want to thank all of my colleagues for co-sponsoring this important paper. Also, thanks to Finance and Law for working on both the original paper and the substitute, and Deputy Chief of Staff Pace and his team. So I will try to eloquently describe what the substitute does, and then if I mess up or y'all have additional questions, DOF is here. So basically, this started out early in the budget season as a paper to fill the gap in our resurfacing. There was no resurfacing done in the city for 2 years under the prior administration, which is where the magical $12 million comes from, calculating those 2 years. So this simply just gets us back on track with where we should be currently to catch us up. The substitute, instead, the original proposal was to pull the full $12 million out of unrestricted reserves. This instead, working with finance, pulls $9 million from interest from the 2015 bond issuance. Breaks that down by council district. That works out to $750,000 per council district. And then we've also added, to bring it back to the full $12 million, $3 million from unrestricted reserves. That covers the additional $250,000 per council district. So each council district still does get $1 million. It also puts in here that each council member needs to work with the Department of Transportation, Commissioner Cavaness and his team, to establish the list for each council district, and that needs to be done by September 30th of this year, because again, we want to get these projects out the door and these streets resurfaced. So that is, in summary, what the substitute does, and Finance needs to weigh in. If y'all have any questions for Finance, defer to the...
Almost done.
Any questions, any reflections from Finance would be helpful, specifically to where the $9 million from the bond funds are coming from.
Sure. Our controller, Ms. Carr, is here too, but the 2015 Renew Atlanta bonds does sit in a trust account that's been earning interest over the years. So the $9 million is interest earned over the period of time. And so just reconciling, pulling the interest that was earned, bringing it back in and spreading it over the project accounts that were already approved.
So how much interest was earned over that time?
It was about $9.5 million of interest that was related to the transportation components. The Renew also had some facility interest in there as well. We're reconciling that. It's about a couple million in there for deemed facilities.
Councilmember Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm not sure if this is a CFO question or a paper author question. So a couple things. Number one is there's a condition in here now, a new whereas, that requires the CFO to certify the bond interest balance if there's.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that is just a mechanism so that if there is somehow or another $1 million that we earn, that
So-
will then reduce the $3 million that comes from uncommitted,
No,
okay?
what it does is it assures we spend the 9 first. So from accounting perspective, we need to spend the bond proceeds prior to fund balance. So as we're tackling through the completion and we're paying bills, we're paying out of the 9 million before we get to the 3.
All right, so let's talk about that then. So everybody's allocated 750,000 and say, I hold out and I don't spend mine for a certain bit, so the whole first 9 million tranche isn't spent. Does that prevent another council district who has spent their 750?
And encumbrances as well. So we need to go ahead and get them encumbered. Yes.
Okay, but again, I'm trying to see if there is a situation where a council district that has not spent or encumbered their funds then stalls the other 250 that another district is ready to go on.
No, we will assure that that's not going to happen. Yes. Because we're allocating, we're grouping this as an entire project, so we're allocating all of the encumbrances up front. The 1 million per council district is going to get encumbered at the same time.
All right, so the language doesn't say that. It just says that the 3 million will not be transferred until you certify that the fund. So to me, I read this that it could hold it up. And I know of a council member wearing blue that probably is not going to be happy about that. Because she's expressed that concern.
We'll
with other
tweak
bond
this,
funds
put the
before.
9 million gets encumbered before the 3 million. How
All
about
right,
that?
I appreciate that. I think I'd feel more comfortable if there was more
Okay.
specific language in there that prevents that from happening.
Sure.
Second question I have is that 3 million comes in, and unlike the original 9 million, it sounds like it goes into a pot that we're going to try our best to distribute that as equally as possible among the districts.
So that's the coordination, that's the coordination that's going to happen with ADOT. And we need all the commissioners to weigh in and give their list to ADOT by 9:30.
So I will tell you, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not on a best efforts basis that the 3 million is going to get as equally distributed as possible, as I don't like the as possible. So I'm going to raise that flag. I mean, and I think what I'm going to do is make a motion to approve on condition that we've got substitute language by the 5th, our council meeting that addresses both of those two concerns.
Sure.
But I will say, I do appreciate.
And this is also dual referred, so we can.
Oh, we get it in
work
finance this afternoon too?
finance. If we can work to get those substitutes in before FEC today, we'll work on that as well.
Even better. But no, I do appreciate the administration and your openness and willingness and creativity. I wouldn't say creativity, but resourcefulness in realizing we had those funds from 2015.
Absolutely.
And that we can deploy those in a way that is actually in keeping with the philosophy of this paper. So,
Absolutely.
But I'll make that motion. Either the condition can be met in FEC this afternoon or by the 5th. Thank you.
I'll second the motion. We do have to have the caption read in at some point, but for now, Ms. Overstreet.
I just wanted to say publicly, that's exactly why I had my light on. I definitely want to make sure that it's not that the language is not, that we'll do our best. And I also wanted to ask the question in order to ensure that I get the full million. Do I need to do separate legislation like I see for number 5 for Councilmember Hillis? Is that the proper way?
So
me
we're going to
about
get to that. I think the short answer is no, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay, because
Yeah.
whatever it takes for me to, not be in the pot, I'm trying to do that.
I mean, I think the intent and the spirit is to have everybody coordinated, assembled by 9:30 with the list to the ADOT commissioner.
Okay.
That when we go with a procurement package, we're doing this as a unit and not coming back and doing them onesie twosies, causing further inefficiencies, increasing unnecessary costs across the system. I think that's the spirit of why we're trying to do this as a holistic approach. And from an accounting perspective, we were just wanting to prioritize the spending of the 9 million before the 12 million, because those are bond funds that have been out there for a minute. We just want to get that out the door first.
Okay, well, first of all, I do want to also thank Councilmember Hillis and ATL DOT and the finance department for, giving us these funds, because, resurfacing makes everybody happy. Like, I think that we should have velvet streets for everyone, from City Hall, branching all the way out, and I do mean velvet streets. I was driving even down Central Avenue the other day, and I thought, this is like Cascade Road. And I want us to be on velvet here in Atlanta. So thank you. And velvet streets for everyone. Or suede streets, whatever your preference. But ATL DOT has already started meeting with us individually, just so you know. I've already sat down with Deputy Commissioner Moore, to start my list, so I only have like 2 more streets to put on mine. I'm already ready, and the residents are ready too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Overstreet. And I will echo her sentiment to ATL DOT that if we're going to finalize a list by district by September 30th, it'd be helpful if you're reaching out to us to schedule those meetings to have those conversations, because I think all of us can say, I think this street and this street in my district should be paved, but you're going to have information on the quality of some streets that we may not have on our radar, and so it's worth us to have that conversation. Councilmember Norwood.
When we were authorized the $3 million out of the Moving Atlanta Forward and T-SPLOST, and each council member got $1.5 million in vertical and $1.5 million in horizontal, which was authorized, as you know, in 2021. But I had asked for individual bank accounts, and I know y'all did not do that, but you did segment out that $3 million so that each of us knew that was in a lockbox with a key on it. I'm requesting similar language for this. We are, and I know I understand there are differences here, but I think what we're looking at is the concerns that my colleagues have had. And I think if we go back to as similar as we can make the language in this ordinance as the previous one, it would be helpful to us.
Noted. I would like to just say that the 750,000 of the million is in specific council district allocations. We can tighten up around how we do that with the 3 million that's in the capital finance fund. They're not quite the same, but that is something we can probably figure out how to carve into the language here.
Great. Okay, so 750 already is segmented the way we're talking about.
Correct.
So what we're looking at is the 250,000 at the end.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, did you have a question, or you pulled it back? You're good? Okay. I fully supported this. $1 million per district is better than 0 per district. I will note, however, that I represent a district that has a lot of roads that get disproportionate use based on folks coming in and out of the city every day, going to work, destinations, et cetera. And so I think the best public policy would be to do it based on need and road use and road wear and tear. So I'm not going to hold it up because of that. I think the equitable piece is what makes this politically palatable to get it through council. But it would be helpful from ATL DOT, even if just a private one-on-one conversation, to get a sense of where we see the most need for repaving based on road use and wear and tear. Yeah, thank you. And we have a motion and second on the floor. I think you can, Councilmember Hillis.
Yeah, again, just want to thank everybody, and Councilmember Juan. Hopefully finance will work on your request and the others by FEC. I'm happy this is where we are, but again, this just catches us up, and more of a philosophical looking forward conversation needs to be had about how we bring all of our streets up to where they need to be. I don't believe it was transportation, but I went over each district's the percentage of streets that are either in very poor or fair condition. First was District 1 at 57. Almost 60% of the streets are in subpar condition. So this is, again, just catching us up. I'm going to be working on legislation in the future. I know when we had budget discussions, Commissioner Cavaness and his team talked about doing another pavement conditions index study hopefully by the end of this calendar year, getting that rolling, because the one we have currently is 5 years old. But then we've got to look at how do we get more of our streets resurfaced, getting all of these caught up to where they need to be, and then getting on a sustainable plan for resurfacing. Because just continuing to spend $6.5 million a year in street resurfacing citywide is not going to cut it. If you look at other large cities, they're spending, and you're adjusting, of course, for population, they're spending $30 to $40 million per year on street resurfacing. So, again, happy we are where we at, but we need to go much further. I look forward to having those discussions. And also, I am very particular over my street list, and I have a whole Google Sheets of my currently approved projects for LMIG resurfacing and the ones I hope to get into this $1 million. So I am open to sitting down with my colleagues and working with you all, looking over your current LMIG list and your pavement condition index scores, and working on a draft sheet with y'all. So if y'all want to take me up on that offer, feel free to reach out to my office and we'll get on the schedule. So thank you all.
Thank you for your leadership on this, Councilmember Hillis. Could you read the caption?
Item number 4, 23-01334, an ordinance by Councilmembers Dustin Hillis, Jason H. Winston, Amir R. Faroki, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Matt Westmoreland, Byron D. Amos, Jason Dozier, Miriam Norwood, Andre L. Boone, Antonio Lewis, Liliana Bakhtiari, Keisha Shawn Waits, Michael Julian Bond, Alex Wan, and Howard Shook, as substituted by Transportation Committee. An ordinance adding to anticipations and appropriations 2015 Series A and B General Obligation Public Improvement Infrastructure Bond Interest Income Proceeds, an amount not to exceed $9,000,000 to add to the funds and accounts listed herein, the transfer from the uncommitted fund balance in the amount not to exceed $3,000,000 to the account listed herein, to be utilized as equally as possible throughout all 12 council districts to address resurfacing and safety improvements in the city's right-of-way and for other purposes.
Great. I think we have a motion to approve on condition by Councilmember Wan, and second by Faroki. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute on condition. This item is also a due referral and will be referred to today's FEC meeting. Item number 5, 23-01335, an ordinance by Councilmember Dustin Hillis authorizing the transfer of a total amount not to exceed $1 million to the Atlanta Department of Transportation for sidewalk, infill, and road resurfacing projects in District 9, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to make payment from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. The sponsor requested that the item be held.
Motion to hold. Second by Wan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
Mr. Hillis, would you like to speak to this while we're voting?
Yes, I'm requesting to hold this because there's some loose ends that needs to be tied up. Working with DC Moore about getting some project estimates. This goes back to before Commissioner Cavaness's and DC Moore's time here, but just hope that these can be expedited because these have been requested for almost a year now. And this is, to be clear, this is the new 2021 bond money, of which $1 million I'm dedicating to either street resurfacing and/or sidewalk infill projects. So I'm looking forward to getting those project estimates so we can finalize this list, and then we'll move it out of committee after that happens. So thank you all.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is held in committee.
Since this has been brought up, can we get some clarity from law on this? So we didn't have to do this under the 2016 bond infrastructure bond bill, which was to have legislation to allocate money to various departments to execute it. So councilors do not have discretionary dollars from the bond sitting in some sort of council account. Is this sort of legislation necessary to make sure the funds are being spent by DOT, or does DOT already have the funds? We just got to tell them how to spend it.
Just give me 1 second to put this on.
And if we need to come back another day to have that conversation, it's fine. This is being held today. I just think some clarity would be helpful. Maybe by the next meeting would be great, because this is the first piece of legislation I've seen like this, and my understanding is that we don't have the funds. It's sitting somewhere in the finance department, If we tell DOT we want to spend it on sidewalks or roads, it's going to get spent that way. But if we need to do legislation, I think all the council members need to know that. Yeah. Item 6.
Section G, resolutions. Item number 6, Mr. Chair, requires a substitute. The substitute changes the caption. It adds additional language and also adds the account information.
Motion to bring substitute forward by Juan, second by Faroki. Please open the vote on the motion to bring forth the substitute.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you. Item number 6, 23R 3754, a resolution by council members Byron D. Amos and Dustin Hillis as substituted by Transportation Committee. A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a project management agreement with West Side Howell Mill Community Improvement District, doing business as Upper West Side Improvement District, for the West Side Paper Spur Trail Project on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, an amount not to exceed $2,920,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Moore,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again,
can you just formally introduce yourself to folks watching on TV?
Yeah, Greg Moore, ATL DOT Deputy Commissioner for Capital Delivery. Again, this resolution is for establishing a PMA with the CID to deliver this project.
I will move to approve. Second by Norwood. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone, the vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. Item number 7, 23R 3755, a resolution by Councilmember Liliana Batiari requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on Spence Avenue Southwest from Hosea Williams Drive Southeast to Memorial Drive Southeast and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, this item needs to be substituted. The substitute corrects the directionals from Spence Avenue Southwest to Spence Avenue Southeast and Hosea Williams Drive Southeast to Hosea Williams Drive Northeast in the caption and throughout the legislation.
I'll move to bring forward the substitute. Second by Overstreet. I just motion to bring forward the substitute. We don't need to.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. The item will need to be amended, excuse me.
Okay. I'll move to amend the caption as articulated. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is amended.
Oh, motion to approve is amended. By Overstreet, second by Faroki.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable as amended. Mr. Chair, may we take items number 8 and 11 together? These are for the installation of always stops.
Please do.
Item number 8, 23R 3757, a resolution by Councilmember Jason Dozier requesting the mayor or his designee to make an always stop control intersection at Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard and White Street Southwest to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation to install stop signs at the intersection and for other purposes. Item number 11, 23R 3764, a resolution by Councilmember Amir Faroki and Jason Winston requesting the mayor or his designee to install an always stop at the intersection of Euclid Avenue Northeast and Benning Place Northeast and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith.
Good morning, council members. Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT, TIM Division. We support this legislation.
Move to approve those items. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable. This takes us back to item number 9. 23R3761, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Lewis requesting the mayor or designee install traffic calming devices on Springside Drive Southeast from Waters Road Southeast to Jonesboro Road Southeast and for other purposes. The item will need to be amended to change the street directionals of Waters Road Southeast to Waters Road Southwest in the caption and throughout the legislation.
Motion amended by Juan, second by Faroki. Councilmember, before we amend it, let's amend it to add Councilmember Waits to the caption, please.
We'll just include there in that amendment as well.
Yeah, so motion to amend with all those changes. Is there a second? Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote.
Mr. Chair, we can just move the item as amended. We'll just incorporate Councilmember Waits' name in the caption.
The vote's open.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is amended. We will need to approve as amended.
Motion by Juan to approve, second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
I'm not away. I'm a yay.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable as amended. Item number 10, 23R3763, a resolution by council members Amir Faroki and Jason Winston requesting the mayor as designee to install traffic calming devices on Euclid Avenue Northeast between Benning Place Northeast and North Avenue Northeast and for other purposes.
Good morning again. Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT, Tim Division. We support this legislation.
I'll move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. This takes us to item number 12, 23R3798, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute a memorandum of understanding with American Airlines Incorporated for the uses of certain gates and space at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
BB Odari, Airport General Manager. This American Airlines is allowing us to use two of their gates to support the growth of other airlines, as I showed you earlier. We're going from 5 million to 10 million passengers this year. So this is a good thing for the airport.
I'll move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 13, 23R3799, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a task order fund an amount not to exceed $20,429,461.00 for use under contract number FC 8640, Construction Management Support Services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with ATL Construction Management Partners, a joint venture comprised of, as listed herein, to provide construction management support services for the Department of Aviation on a task order basis. All services will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
FY24 budget to support our construction management team in our capital program development.
Are there any specific projects associated with this allocation?
So this is about $811 million worth of projects for fiscal year 24.
I'll move to approve. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 14, 23R3800, a resolution by Transportation Committee recommending supplementing funding for agreement FC 10278, fuel storage facility and fueling facility operation and ground support fueling management with Lewisburger ATL Fuel Services joint venture comprised of Lewisburger, Hawthorne Services Incorporated, and Materials Managers and Engineers Incorporated at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport on behalf of the Department of Aviation, an amount not to exceed $7,500,000.00 and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
This is the final year of our 5-year initial term of this contract, and this is 100% reimbursable operational expense.
I'll move to motion approved by Juan, second by Faroki. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 1523R3801, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a task order fund an amount of $26,310,000.00 for the use under contract number FC 7744 Program Management Support Services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Atlanta Aviation Associates, A3, a joint venture to provide program management services for the Department of Aviation on a task order basis. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
Similar to our construction management, this is program management for our capital program.
Motion approved by Lewis, second by Faroki. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 1623R3802, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as needed to execute 3 agreements for RFPS 1230110 at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with 1 Griffin Consulting Contracting LLC, Red Rock Global, and Rubber Boots Lawn Care Services LLC for off-airport exterior asset maintenance and services on behalf of the Department of Aviation in an amount not to exceed $300,000.00. All services will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
This is authorizing us to onboard 3 small landscaping businesses to help us remove and clear tire dumps, debris, fallen trees, and so on and so forth around our airport on off-airport properties.
I'll move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 1723R3803, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as needed to execute an amendment to Cooperative Purchase Agreement CPS 1220067 with GCR Incorporated pursuant to sections 2-1602, 2-1604, and 2-1608 of Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to amend the statement of work and cost proposal for the purchase, installation, and maintenance of commercial information technology equipment at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, and an amount not to exceed $1,300,000.00 to be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
So this contract is already in place. It's a city contract, and what we want to do is use them to purchase hardware, installation, and maintain those hardware to better manage our cargo operation, our cargo gates and ramp information display system for cargo operations.
Mr. Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. GM, so the original contract, what kind of work was it for? And what was the amount that we're now adding 1.3 million to?
So the current contract that we have in place, we're using them for three specific work, right? It's a web-based system. We're using it for the airport revenue management system. 2 years ago, when I took this job and I asked about what revenue management we're using, we were doing it paper and pencil. So this brought us into the 21st century technology, and also a mandate that is coming down on us by the federal government for safety management system. So we're using that, and we're on the cutting edge. We are leading the nation in our safety management system, and so that's what we're using that. And you said the second question was the value of
the original contract work.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't have that in my notes.
All right.
We'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to move forward on condition for that? Okay, great. I'll move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote.
Where, Mr. One, that I didn't have the information for you.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for today.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank everyone for being here today, to our department and agency heads for presenting to us. Any closing remarks from the body? Barring none, we are adjourned. Thank you all.